Hey, I'm Daniel Berger, and this is Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Welcome to the podcast where Metro New York real estate meets great stories and a douse of humor. Forget the dry sales talk. Here we dive into the fun and unexpected moments of real estate. Join me each week as we explore Westchester, Long Island, the Bronx, and more. You'll hear about the people, the places, and the crazy situations that make this industry so interesting. Thanks to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, we're ready to share the lighter side of real estate. Whether you're a pro, a buyer, or just curious, we've got something for everyone. Ready for today's adventure? Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. Today, I'm excited to have on the CEO of Reva Global, Bob Lachance. What's interesting, I think I should have really opened up with he shoots, he scores. Bob, his background is actually he's a professional hockey player, and I guess he felt he wanted to get into real estate because there was less fighting. But maybe not. Maybe there's more fighting in real estate. We're going to try to take our gloves off. We're going to try to throw it around a little bit and work out as many analogies or whatever sports and competitive sports with Bob. And with that, Bob, thank you very much for taking your time out. I don't mean to ice you or anything like that during the intro, but welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Great intro. Great intro.
So talk to me about professional hockey. It's not every day we get someone on who, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you were drafted by the St. Louis Blues.
I was back in the day. Now I'm in real estate. You know how that goes. You get beat up pretty bad here.
So you like that? The St. Louis Blues. I grew up on Long Island.
Ah,
The drive for five, one for the thumb with the New York Islanders.
yep.
That was my team. I'm still a diehard, which just means that it's been years and years. It's decades, right? Decades without anything good. But I did go to school in St. Louis, and the St. Louis Blues have always been my second team. I loved hockey towns are great towns to live in. The fan base is great. The sport's an amazing sport. Congratulations for at least being drafted and all that, because that's the creme de la creme that even can say that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And a fun fact, you actually probably saw my brother play for 7 years. So Scott LaChance was number 4 in the world draft pick back in 1991. So he played for 7 years in Long Island.
Oh, that's true.
Yep,
The When I was in St. Louis, so that was the time of Hull and Oates.
that's
Brett
right.
Hull and Adam
Adam
Oates,
Oates.
I think.
Yep.
Exactly.
The
So
good old days. It's a different game back then. Definitely a different hockey game back then.
you know, now it's like you can't break anyone's teeth because because there's masks going on. You can't even get a puck anymore. There's nets all over the place. It's so sanitized, right? That's almost anti-hockey.
It is, but it was definitely a good road, and all roads lead to real estate.
That's true. So talk to me a little bit about being a professional athlete, preparing for that, and how does that help you prepare for what you do? With Reva Global, it's a virtual assistant company that you've founded and own. And talk to me a little bit about your journey. It's quite
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely. After I got drafted, just a 2 second rundown. I got drafted, and then I went to Boston University for 4 years and left my fourth year to sign with St. Louis, 2 classes short of getting my degree. So I did not fully get my degree at that time with the thought process that, hey, you could always go back to school and get your degree. Fast forward, I'm 51 years old. Guess what I never got? My degree.
You know what? But it's just really a piece of paper.
That's it. That's it. Especially so the great thing about real estate is there's no barriers of entry. So it doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like, nothing. You could jump into real estate, which is the reason why I got into real estate. When I signed, I played 8 years pro, 4 years here in US, 4 years in Europe. And then I had my first kid when I was actually in Europe. And then I decided, all right, it's time to hang up the skates and jump into an industry that I didn't know. I didn't know I was going to jump into real estate, but I decided, hey, if I'm going to go back to school, I'll probably be owned by somebody, probably be told what to do on a daily basis, and my money would be capped. So that's the way I looked at it. So it was either jump into an industry with no barriers of entry or go back to school, finish my degree, and probably be owned by someone for the rest of my life. I decided to do a lot of research on what industries were out there that did not need a degree. And all of the information I read back in the day was go to real estate, go to real estate. So decided to jump into real estate. And yeah, so that was back in 2004. And then I jumped into real estate and I got my first rehab. So I wasn't an agent back in the day. My first year in business, drove around neighborhoods, combed areas, farmed areas, however you want to call it, and I would make offers. And there was a property, it was on Whiting Lane in West Hartford, Connecticut, that was listed by an agent. And I knew not, you got to understand, I didn't know anything about rehabbing. I didn't have money. I had a little money put away, but I didn't know no idea about financing. I didn't have any contractors, but I knew I was unemployable, so I had to jump into real estate. And I thought I was a rehabber at the time. And anyway, put an offer and it was listed at $185,000. I put an offer on 130.35, and 2 days later, called back and said, "Your offer's accepted." And I'm like, "Uh-oh."
What does that mean?
Yeah, what do I do? I got to find money. Even though I put away a little money, I still have to find money, find contractors, etc. So I figured that out pretty quick. Picked up the newspaper back in the day. Obviously, you don't have to do that nowadays, but picked up the Foothills Traders and looked at all painters, contractors, everybody I could find. Called them up, said, "I got a property under contract. I'm looking for a contractor. Do you do contract work?" 3 people said they would meet me. One person showed up. So guess who I used? That
The
person
one.
that showed up. His name was Junior. Awesome. It was a Brazilian crew. I ended up working with them for a long time after that until they moved down to Florida. This is in Connecticut. Did pretty well. First month, rehabbed the whole thing, sold it at an open house that I held, and then made 32 grand, which is pretty cool. But I also realized that I had no other properties to work on. Yeah, it's just kind of being an agent, right? I'm an agent now. I was an agent since 2005, but it's kind of being an agent. If you only have one listing and that thing closes, you're like, all right, what do I do next? So we always have to be prospecting. So I realized that in 2004 that I needed some sort of consistent marketing channel, and I did not have that. I learned where all the investors hung out, which was a place called Connecticut Real Estate Association. And
I thought it was gonna be the local tavern.
that was when I played hockey. Local taverns,
Okay.
especially my specialty for sure. So anyway, I joined one of those meetings, and there's a guy speaking on pre-foreclosure, a guy by the name of Jeff Collars back in 2004. So I invested in his course to learn about it because again, this is another niche. I wanted to learn anything I could about the industry I was getting into. I'm like, all right, now I'm going to be a short sale specialist. And again, I didn't even know what a short sale was, and zero idea.
Except
But
that it seemed like that might have been a good time as a premonition, leading up to 2008. But okay, so you're a short
correct.
sale specialist.
So the next meeting, I went up to everyone in the meeting. I said, all right, who's the top guy in Connecticut? And in Connecticut, we're not a huge state, so you could do that here. And they all pointed to one individual. His name is Pat Precourt. And I went up to him and said, Pat, I'm not looking for a job. I'm looking to join a team. I don't know much about real estate. Do you have any open positions? He said, I'm looking for an acquisition specialist. I'm like, I'm your guy. I had no idea what that entailed. Come to find out, for a year straight, he gave me a list of pre-foreclosure properties and I door knocked every Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., looking at seeing who is interested in selling their house. And then they get involved, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I did for my first year. So a lot of agents do the same thing, prospecting. I had a list and I was door knocking. So that's how I got my start.
Hey, it's you know what? It's the biggest thing is it was you had the effort and the desire, right? I'm anti door knocking only because I don't like it. And I've had jobs like so I worked at Poland Spring for that was I worked for Nestle Waters Poland Spring. And my area was sales area was Northern Queens. And I had to basically go there were commercial, but you would go up and down to try to get some of the retail business and you would walk in
Yep.
and do what you could. So from that I did it. But in other jobs that I had, I always tried to do things that had me not door knock or phone call. So
Yeah.
I have actually in real estate have never door knocked and don't prospect via telephone.
Yeah.
So I'm not wearing the headset or calling up. But again, that's I think what you said. Why real estate's kind of cool is because we can make our own path, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't want to work for somebody else, and that was and you didn't want to cap, right? So the interesting thing is like the salary cap, but some people would love a cap because it also gives them the floor, right? So that they're not going to go below a floor if they're still employed. As independent contractors and things that we do in this world, that's not how it goes. And you really eat what you kill, right? You have to,
Yeah.
and you also have to do what works for you. So for me, I've done other sources of lead generation that's allowed me to do that. I like that you said that you had to find something that you can do that didn't need a college degree. By the way, you're only two credits, you're two classes away. You could always potentially do that, but again, I don't know if that piece of paper would even help.
Yep.
I I had a lot of fun at college. I went to WashU in St. Louis, and I was happy that I was able to graduate on time.
It's good.
And I actually went to grad school because I mine was different. I wanted the piece of paper. And what's interesting is I don't necessarily think that I'm no different because I have the piece of paper, but in other people's eyes, I'm a little different. And I'm still me. So but I also did it at night. I did it while I was working a full-time job. I did it at night. It didn't stop my career path. But for me, it's interesting is I never read what I was supposed to read for undergraduate to go to class. And in grad school, it was more for me. And I never didn't read what I was supposed to read to go to class. So it was funny that it's the same person, but I viewed things differently right at the
Yeah.
time. So I'm also in real estate because I don't like working with spreadsheets and pivot tables. I'm like, that's not what I'm doing. You probably do things with spreadsheets. I try not to. So I try to muddle my way, just me being me and trying to get it done without having those, to me, those are my shackles.
In real estate, it's funny because wherever you start in real estate, it's typically not where you end, right? Because you look at, I have a lot of real estate agent clients. Myself, I'm a real estate agent. Guys in my office, I also have a real estate investment company as well. And I always look at this and I say, all right, wherever you are, wherever you start, especially real estate agents, because there's a lot of opportunities, not only on the listing side, representing buyers, representing sellers, but there's also opportunities to get into whether it's fix and flip, whether it's to get into buy and holds, et cetera, development opportunities. As an agent, it's always good to have your license because there are other opportunities that you will find by having your license.
See, I love that you say that because not every not all agents are created equal and
Mhm.
not all agents have that vision. And what you just said to me makes so much sense because how am I supposed to get my clients to invest in properties that I don't even think that I think are horrible and I would never want to get involved in? Right. So clearly, part of our job is to be that conduit to help people do what they want to do, right? Without judgment. But if you know that something's bad, why shouldn't you redirect people? So I don't know if that's maybe it's not
Yeah.
that five family home. Maybe you should do this. But I love what you just said. I'm smart enough to know that I'm not the smartest. And when I find people that are doing things really well and intuitive, how do I latch onto that and learn and maybe and assist in the ways that I can assist? So I have a client where he's very active investor. He's come to a couple of my open houses and he's like, I think I want to get a license. I'm like, why do you want to get a license? He's because I own a lot of properties. I buy, I sell. And I'm like, you don't need to get a license. I'm like, I have a Remax. Why don't you'll work with me? So that was like 2 years ago now. I've probably done 18 of his rentals and five of his purchases, and we're in contract
Awesome.
on three others. And I actually let him pay me what he feels I'm worth for that transaction. So it a lot of times for his rentals, here's all the paperwork. Here's the pictures. I don't have to do anything. There are some projects I've never been to the property, but I use MLS, I put it on, and he then does the showings. And I'm like, you pay me what you think it's worth. And so by doing that, it's value added to him. He doesn't have to deal with getting a license. And also sometimes you don't want to be the agent if you're the owner. And
Yeah.
so one of the properties that he's about to buy is a firehouse in upstate in mid-state New York, in Beacon, New York. And we're in contract. And as I start seeing what his plan is, he's the only problem. My only view is it's a firehouse that has no fire pole. That's a little disappointing. I would think that you would have that, but it's maybe so there's no fire pole. The goal is to make the downstairs a commercial space for a restaurant or something like that, and then do four apartments upstairs. And
Nice.
I've really learned about accelerated depreciation, about all the ins and outs of investing and how to become a smarter investor through working with him and watching him on other properties. And so now on this property, I was like, we talked about his plan and how it would make sense and his P&L and what the vision is. And I'm like, are you thinking of taking on investors? And he's, I usually like to do it myself, but so we started talking. And then together we were able to say he would be able to buy more properties if he
With
brought on other investors. And obviously he's very smart, where he buys things with cash and then he gets a mortgage and tries to, so he's doing all of that, but still having access to other people. So yeah, I'm going to open up the firehouse to 49% investor. So my wife and I, we own another investment property, but what better way to show how much we feel this is valuable and that he's a good operator. So we're investing 25% in the latest in this transaction. And there's some other ones that we're considering with him as well. So he's now opened his business up to taking on investors because he's very talented of being, like you said, that he's now going to be the head of it. And then how do
yeah.
you then bring on other people to do more projects?
Right. I mean, you have a resource, which is capital. Everybody needs capital, which you made yourself more valuable by learning what he does. And now you get to go to other potential buyers and go through the same thing. So now you're a resource for individuals in your area. Not only that, you open his mind to, in essence, creating a fund or you're a bank, right? We do some lending as well here. So same thing as you. Other agents can do the same thing because they have opportunities now to get into deals where maybe their expertise is not rehabbing, but you have opportunities. You see a great property. We see this a lot because we do a lot of marketing on our real estate company. I also have a real estate company on top of my virtual assistant company. We do a lot of marketing. What we see and what we realize is some sellers do not want to go to us agents because they're embarrassed, right? They're a hoarder. They don't want people walking through their house and they just want a quick sale. So those are other opportunities for agents as well. If they either buy properties themselves or they do have investors like you could call your investor friend up and say, hey, this is a great deal. They do not want to put on the MLS, so I can't do anything to help them, but here's a potential opportunity for you. So again, it's another way, another tool in your tool belt to be able to service your investor buyers.
In an increasing marketplace, the only problem with those off market, I'm not a big fan of for sellers in the off market deal, because generally if you put things on the market and when you have so many buyers, you get a feeding frenzy of increasing offers. And generally the people that I know that are rehabbers, flippers, investors won't bid as much as what the seller wants. But there are other, so I do recommend always. I just had that recently where somebody wanted me to sell their house. I brought in 5 buyers, 3 offers, and it was like 100,000 short from what the family, 150,000 short, just because the seller has a number in their mind. That's not what the math might not always math, and you need to figure that out. But if you put it on the market, potentially you could get that because not everyone's as smart and different. And to be fair, they might be as smart. Different people have different avenues of why they want to get into an investment and what their P&L looks like, so that maybe they work on less margins and their operating costs are lower and things like that. So you never know. But so that's right now I have it where I brought in, I have offers and they're deciding. And it is probably like a little bit of a hoarding situation
Yeah.
where there's ways to help, right? We have crews that can come in and clean things up. And at some point when you sell that, I guess you don't have to, right? Because we certainly have sold houses where it's as is and the buyer's responsible for the clean out. But, you
But
know,
you brought up a good point that so the reason why you have a great brokerage is because you have all those contacts and connections to be able to assist, right? Not everyone does that. You have clean out crews
right.
that can help. So that's a huge benefit to you, obviously being an incredible broker in your area to be able to do that.
Yeah, and so I'm only like 8 years into real estate. So I feel this is like my second or third career. I'm 56 years old. I feel like I do an okay job because I still have the passion because it's new to me, right? And how I'm a little different is that I don't care about how things were done for years. right? I do things how I want to do them, which is similar. You're clearly an entrepreneur, right? So the businesses that you're creating, you're not building off of a mold of what someone told you. You're like, if you're building them in the ways that, that you want to do, right? You're like, I'm Bob. Hello, Bob. This is what I want to do to make sure if I'm going to do a virtual assistant business, if I'm going to do an investment business, I'm going to do whatever, that you're building the business in the likeness that you think makes the most sense.
Yeah, and it's built off the core is real estate. So there's a lot of different things that you can do off of real estate. That was what I was getting at the beginning. How you start real estate, a lot of times is not how you finish or where you finish, because the idea is just getting started. When you get started, you could see other opportunities that will arise because you're in real estate.
Yeah. What's interesting is I have a lot of people that ask me what are my budgets and goals for a specific year. And I'm like, I don't do that. I don't do budgeting because I did 65 transactions last year. I don't know how just because I did 65 doesn't mean that I can say I'm going to increase it by 11% this year. That I can't. In my, if it, to me, it would be busy work just putting that on a piece of paper. But what I can do is say, how am I getting my leads, right? Is it through this source or that source? I can ensure that I'm continuing doing those programs, investing in those programs, and ensuring that my return on an investment on those lead generation things are staying the same. And if I feel that something's going up or down, then I probably have to change the spigot and make an adjustment to
Yeah.
that. But and then also trying to be in front of mind of as many people as possible so that when someone's able to decide to sell or buy, that my phone rings, right? My phone rings, I get a text or something like that. So those are the things that I can do to try to keep my business. And so this is my eighth or ninth year, and my business keeps growing every single year. But what I did last year, it does have a bearing on what's going to happen this year because clearly I now have clients that I've done double digit transactions with, right?
Yeah.
So it's through them and their families. And the more that I do that, so other things that I've done is I do the podcast, right? So I get to meet
Yeah.
cool people on the podcast where I might need a virtual assistant. I have a referral. So the connection of people is certainly something that's very important for sure. And I also just wrote a book, actually. I just wrote a book called The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I finished it and published it a couple weeks ago. It's on Amazon. It's called The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. It's hardcover, it's soft cover, and it's also on a Kindle. And it's basically the stories, 10 stories, 10 chapters of the stories that had with clients. And so what's interesting is to celebrate the book launch, I basically had a customer appreciation barbecue in my backyard. 150 people. I gave out books. I had a bartender. I had a barbecue. And it was
Oh,
basically celebrating my clients. And then here's a book that I wrote. And it was funny because people would be walking around the barbecue, be like, I'm chapter 4. Oh, I'm chapter 7. They were like opening the book at the table to see where they were. Some people had seen, I was sending chapters a little bit as we went. We all have stories to tell. And the funny thing is I now can say that I'm a published author, but
nice.
it's the hardest part of that is you've created companies, right? So a lot of people can be like, oh, I have a good idea. I want to do this. You created the Reva Global, right? So you set up the system, you did everything that you needed to do. That's hard, right? So everyone's, oh, you look how lucky Bob is, and you make your own luck, right? And so nothing's given to you. You had an idea and you executed.
Yeah, and I think to your point, luck, I think you put yourself in a luck's position, right? Obviously, winning the lottery, that's pure luck, but other
But you
things.
still put yourself in the position because you bought the tickets.
So exactly. So to your point, I look at what we all accomplish, right? Even your book, you took the time, energy. It's not easy writing a book, etc. So for me, after I was doing a lot of real estate and we hit obviously actually this is a funny story, not a funny story, but part of the journey is 2007 when I was doing real estate and I was doing short sales and all that kind of good stuff. I got introduced to an ex NFL player, live in Connecticut, and he was part of our real estate investment association. He's also an agent himself. and he wanted to start a company called Fortune Builders. And it was just an idea at the time. And he said, "Hey, Bob, you and Pat I know you guys are doing some work with another short sale company and doing coaching. You guys want to partner?" I'm like, "Sure, we'll partner. We want you guys to run the back end of the coaching program." So anyway, that morphed into a $300+ million sales company just on the coaching side. And then that's what gave me the idea of starting a virtual assistant company, because you know this, when you're coaching agents, teaching agents, and you give them the blueprint of how to be successful, but they don't do the tasks. I was like, there's got to be a system, there's got to be a process, there's got to be a service out there that'll actually do the tasks that I'm telling these investors to do so they could actually be successful too. And that was actually the invention of Reva Global, which I started in 2014 because of the need of helping our students. So it's pretty funny story.
I think I like how you integrate different aspects of your business. I think that's great. You're going to hate me in the sense of I don't have a virtual assistant. I also don't have any, I have no staff. So the company probably did 120. I have other agents, but I do probably 45% of the business because I love selling. I basically built a franchise so that I don't have to have a boss. And then it's okay, I'll have other agents because why not? And I love selling, but I do like mentoring. So my coaching's free, right? My coaching that I do and my mentoring only costs the splits that they would have to pay anyway. But so I do like that. And so I basically built the company so I don't have to listen to other people. And like the issue with the coaches, I do think that there are people that coaching certainly helps clearly because they need other people to keep them committed to either help them see what the plan is and to reinforce that they're doing the plan.
Yeah.
I don't think you still could have a coach, but it seems to me that you might not need it because you're self-driven for that. You basically had your hockey career was over. You didn't have a college degree, and you're like, what am I going to do tomorrow morning? And you found your way very successfully, I might add. And mine's the same way, where I don't need to pay somebody $1,000 a month to tell me what to do because I'm doing it. But I think there's certainly a need. The virtual assistants is so I did myself last year. You're going to think I'm an idiot, but 65 transactions myself last year for $42 million, and I have no admin and no. I have a part time. I don't really have an admin by any stretch. I have someone that helps me for 20 hours do like photos on listings. That's
Yeah,
really
see,
not
I
an
think
assist.
that's insanity right there. I think that's purely insane.
So I would argue that I am. But you know what? My secret, so I came into an industry, right? So it's now 8 years, so 48 years old. People already, people already had been doing this for decades, right? And what's my secret sauce, my special sauce? And why would somebody want to use me as these other people, either younger or with more experience or whatever? And so my secret sauce is that they get to work with me, not with other people. I've had some things where I've tried to use different things that would reach out to my clients and they generally don't like it and they generally don't want emails from others besides me, and I know that you can make it look like that, and they want to work with me. That's but certainly, to be fair, there's only so much of me, so I can't necessarily do everything. But on the other hand, I don't need to be a gazillionaire, right? So at some point, what's enough? And if I did 40, 65 deals, 42 million, that's okay. So I don't need to do more. But also I certainly do want to become more efficient. I think as I'm getting into it working, I might bring in more of my other agents where it's together we're working on stuff that allows me to do a little bit more. But ultimately, I think my clients like that it's me that's doing it. But
Yeah.
it is crazy. So you're 100% correct. And I do work like every day and I work really late every day, but I guess I love it so much so that it's
Yeah.
not
It's
like a
not work.
chore for
Yeah.
me.
It's
It's
not work.
not work.
Yeah.
I'm right. We're chatting with people we like. I had 150 clients at my house and it was just joyous, right? And so if you go on my Instagram, by the way, you can see we had a little video of it, but it was just basically coming together, eating, drinking, chatting. So like when I'm showing houses, it's fun. It's enjoyable for me. So it's not that much work. if I was smart enough, I guess I would learn how to outsource things that nobody would know about. Even do my own bookkeeping for me and for the, or at least the payment of commit. I don't have a process. I basically, the check gets cashed and then I either Zelle it or write a check. So I don't, it's, you know what, at some point it's small. It's, I guess, boutique like, right? Because I'm not trying to get, a lot of people talk about scaling. So I don't want to scale for the sake of scaling.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you're going to look at me and you're like, I built a $300 million whatever. I'm probably not ever building a $300 million something, but
But
for me,
that's what you
me.
want. Yeah, that's what you want. It's we have clients come to us either want to scale or become more efficient, like you said. So if they don't want to be working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a lot of them have families, younger kids, so they want to spend time doing sporting events. So they have them take care of whether it's transaction coordinating tasks, whether it's cold calling, creating marketing, listing packets, MLS management. There's a lot of tasks that they actually do just to get them out of the weeds, even the bookkeeping as well.
I think that the lead generation of cold calling, clearly that would be something that if I felt that I needed more business and I
Right.
needed to do that, that I would offshore. Because also it doesn't, I don't need to be the person calling that. Nobody, they don't really care. It's either someone that oh, our guy can call you back or hang up. Or I've also tried to use, there's some other companies that do from Google search words and other things like that, that you can get people to click on you to call you. So I do have that involved. So I'm not cold calling. I'm trying to get people to see my ads somewhere on
Yeah.
the internet superhighway and click on a button where my phone rings. So it's a different form of doing it. But what's interesting is for me being a coach and mentor, yeah, it is nice to, again, I'm also being a little older. I'm an empty nester. So I've done the coaching and all that. I don't really have that as much anymore, but trying to not do those tasks, there's a combination of not wanting to do it or commit enough time to it. And there are some things you have to do, but it's certainly like for me, the transaction coordinator, I don't really need someone to do a memo because generally you take an old memo and you have to put a couple of different, you change it. But I like doing it because I want to know that the memo is the way that I want it. I figured by the time I told someone to do the memo the way that I wanted, it's just, you're just editing something. It takes me 15 minutes, right? So when you
You
do
like the control. You obviously like the control, which I love.
you know what? So it's not the control for the sake of controlling. I think it's making sure that there are no errors, right? Because again, it's my name as the agent and it's my name as the brokerage. So I don't want like a memo to go out to the lawyers that has improper inclusions or exclusions, or isn't the deal that we did, or the commission structure is wrong, or so it's more like just making sure that things are, I guess that's, it's a form of control. But it's more of control to make sure that things are done
Yeah.
properly,
Yep.
right?
Yep. I'm
Because
100%. Yeah.
I love sharing clients with people. I love when I have clients that come in and I'm like, okay, this one I know I don't have time, but let's work together with this person. I'm going to oversee it. They're going to show you. We'll put in offers together. So it's never about the control. And it's certainly, and when I do that, I actually share equally, right? So I don't take like a cut of the whatever. I'm like, you want to partner with me because your split's going down so little. It's my clients. But yes, and I think that's the beauty of real estate is that you can, if you're if you're a thinker and trying to think outside the box, there are a lot of different ways to skin the cat that makes the way that you want to do it.
Yep.
But
Agreed.
so you're not wrong, and maybe I'm going to call you soon and say, okay, how do we get me and my team on virtual assistants and all that? But what are some of the things that you think that agents should hold on to and not have virtual agents do?
Yeah, I think if you're looking to scale, just going off of what you said, if you're looking, not everyone's looking to scale, not everyone's looking to become more efficient, right? That's just the nature of any types of business. But the things that, and I could tell you enjoy meeting with homeowners, buyers, sellers, etc. So that is, I always look at it, you have income producing tasks and non-income producing tasks. So the way what you're telling me is lead generation is not a challenge for you, but for a lot of agents it is. I could tell if I'm going into a coffee shop, I guarantee you're the first person who talks to me, right? Just because you enjoy that part of it. What I found through the years, not everyone is as outgoing as you, which is a trait not everybody has, which I absolutely love that. So it would be meeting with sellers and meeting with buyers that you spend most of your time on. So if it's appointment setting, that's going to be driving leads. I think that's one of the things that you could outsource. Social media management, something else you could outsource because we all need branding. We all need to have our face out there. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. After this podcast, I'll send this over to my virtual assistant team. They'll cut it up and I'll put it all on social. I would not do that myself because I wouldn't do it. Right? There'd be just too many
Right.
steps. It'd be just a pain in the butt. I'd be like, oh, I got to do that again. It's just something I wouldn't do consistently. So that's just an example of how I use it on the social media marketing side. We also have VAs that assist on the transaction coordinating side. There's stuff that can be on the assistant side if you don't want to do this like all day long and you want a little time for yourself.
Yeah. So while I don't have a virtual assistant, I am smart enough to try to leverage things where I can. So, like this podcast, right? So I actually there's a company that I work with who helps find amazing people like yourself and says, let's get together. You should interview Bob on your podcast. Great. Let's do that. I'm not cold calling for that.
Yep.
Those, it goes out to you. I've approved it. You then go into my calendar and here we are. And then I don't do any of the editing. That company does the editing, does the social media. So
Yeah.
I've worked with a company to help me with that because that's clearly important.
Yeah.
Social media, you'll laugh at me. I actually, that's what, so I have two dogs. One of my dogs is actually is crippled. She needed spinal surgery and we walk her in a wheelchair or whatever. But a lot of my routine would be hanging out in my den at night with the dogs, watching generally, hopefully, a sporting event, and then saying, "Okay, I had a closing today. Let me now do social media on my close." Where I'm doing it because I know I want to thank the other side. Who am I going to also tag like the inspector, the lender? The I make it very specific to the transaction, and mine are always thanking everybody. I know I've also never said if I've sold a property 72% over list, I would never say that. I just thank everyone for getting to the closing table. I don't, it's not about making me look better, just saying thank you for everyone. It takes a village and the team together did this. So that is what I would be doing at 10:30 at night, sitting on my phone with Instagram, Facebook, doing those posts.
Very cool.
But again, if you like it, right? So that's the whole point. But I will say it's totally encompassing, right? All encompassing. But it's again, when you've built businesses, and it's different in hockey when your name's on the back of your sweater, right? Where, but you want to make sure that you're prepared for the game because you don't want to. You have your own pride, right? And you want to make sure that you're playing you're the best hockey that you can. I'm trying to be the best real estate agent that I can be for me. Everyone's different, but I feel I've always felt that I don't need to be the best. I just need to be the best Daniel Berger.
That's right. There's only one Daniel Berger. I agree with you.
Well,
But
there's actually multiple Daniel Bergers. It's a very popular name. There's actually a pro golfer named Daniel Berger too.
it
He's like
sure is.
half.
It
He's
sure is.
half my. He's half my age. And the funny thing with that Daniel Berger is, I'm actually a member of the Golf Writers of America. As like because it's funny when we talked about luck and it's making your luck. A good friend of mine was a sportscaster for a local TV station on Long Island, TV 10 and 55. He and that my friend CJ Papa actually traveled with the Islanders. Not it was probably more in the 2000s. He traveled them for 1 or 2 years on the plane to do stuff. He also did in-game stuff, but it was a non-union television station. So I became his producer. So I've interviewed hockey players, I've interviewed golfers, I've done all of his golf work, I've done football, I've done, and so
Oh,
people are like, "You're so lucky that you've done like locker room interviews." I go, I'm like, "You make your own luck." I go, I invest my time to help support them because it's fun. I do like it, and I've met a lot of cool people, and being involved in the being a member. I'm actually on the board of directors of the Metropolitan Golf Writers Association. That has gotten me so many cool things from me doing it as a hobby. But it's not lucky that I was in the locker room. I put in an effort, and I knew that if I wanted to be in a professional hockey locker room, it was never going to be because of the talent of me on the ice. So I had to come up with other talents to be able to get me where I could help people and do the camera or do interviews. That
Yeah.
was so that's where it's, you be the best Bob Lachance that you can be. And as long as every day you can put your head on the pillow knowing that you put a good day's work in and you tried your best, that should be enough. And I try to do the same thing.
I agree. Love it. Love it.
So
Great advice.
we could probably talk for hours. I don't want to, the melatonin might be kicking in on some of the people, so I'm going to wrap. But Bob, thank you so much
Okay.
for coming on. I love the idea of from professional hockey to professional real estate to virtual assistants. And like you said, it's real estate just as a category. And your job is to see where there's a niche, whether it's training, coaching, brokering, or whatever it is, you're going to find a way to add value. And when you add value, you get money from that. And that helps you do the things that you enjoy. So thank you so much for coming on. So the other thing is, do you have you do what you should say a little bit about Reva or any of your, if you want to say any websites or anything, if anyone has any questions about any of your businesses, they can reach out to you.
Yeah, just check out Reva Global, REVA global.com. You can reach out. If you have any questions, there's a button on the front. You can set up a strategy session with someone on our team if you're interested at all. Or if you have any questions, comments, anything, just definitely check us out. We're all over social too, revaglobal.com.
If anyone has any questions about their hockey fantasy draft, or do you have any help with that, or that's
Yeah,
your that's
reach out. I'll
okay,
help you out.
okay, good. Thank you so much, Bob. And so for everyone, for another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker, I'm Daniel Berger. Until next time, thank you for joining in. Thanks for joining me on the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I did. If you laughed, learned something, or just had a good time, do yourself a favor and subscribe to the podcast. A big shout out to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, for making this all possible. Remember to leave a review if you enjoyed the show. It helps more people find us. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep exploring the adventures in your neighborhood. I'm Daniel Berger, your New York realtor, and I'll see you in the next episode.